The Fate of Heroes, starring Patrick, Devin, Rob, Tamara, and John as the Game Master.
And welcome back to Fate of Heroes, and let's start by introducing our players, starting with Rob.
Hi guys, I'm Rob, and I play Alex, and Grampy Raspy, sort of.
Sort of. And Runa.
Hi, I'm Runa, and I play Emma.
All right, so last time, Emma got to Russia, yay! And so did Alex, yay! And then it got really, really confusing as Jacob interfered. Alex met himself, he thinks, in the street, and himself had been stabbed. He then throws himself through a portal and feels blood at his stomach. Emma's confused because she doesn't know why all this is happening and doesn't know why Alex is now wearing the robes of Gregory. And he faints and falls on his face into the dirt. And we're back. And Emma, you hear a shout, and you can see a couple of officials running towards you. The elder that you had talked to initially, the doctor, comes running up, and he's like, Gregory, oh my goodness, she stabbed him, didn't she?
She did, yes. We must help him.
And he looks at you and he says, grab his arms. I will lift him up. We'll take him to his house.
Okay.
And between you pick him up and carry him to his house. His wife screeches would be the wrong word, but kind of is startled and immediately kind of grabs the kids before they have a real good look at what's going on and just kind of shuffles them out of the living room. And between you and a guard and the doctor, you put him on the couch, and the doctor starts looking at his stomach, and he's like, looks down at Alex and says, Gregory, this is a flesh wound. This is nothing. And he smiles. And he says, I go get my medical kit. You guys wait here. And he stands up and walks out. And the guard looks at you and says, don't worry, my miss. I'm sure the father will be fine.
I hope so.
And a little while later, the doctor comes back. At this point, Alex is still unconscious. He then kind of wakes you up, Alex. And he has in his hand what looks like a bottle of vodka. And he says, drink this.
Okay.
By the way, you notice that Alex is speaking perfect Russian, by the way, Emma. No, you don't. Sorry. You hear him speaking perfect English.
Okay.
But everybody else is speaking Russian.
Huh. Okay.
That's right. I forgot how this works.
Yeah. But they seem to know what I'm saying, even though I'm speaking English.
Yeah. Yeah. As far as she's concerned, yeah. They all know what you're saying. But as far as she's concerned, you're speaking English. As far as they're concerned, you're speaking Russian. And he basically, you drink the vodka, and as you're doing that, he applies some alcohol to your stomach, which will have you grimacing for sure. And you... Oh. Yes, and then as you're doing that, he says, here, sniff this, and he hands you another bottle.
I can suspiciously sniff it, like, slightly.
And the smell is overwhelmingly strong. You feel yourself kind of not go asleep, but kind of drowse a bit. And it feels like you went to a dentist, basically. And your lower half kind of gets a little numb. And your brain gets a little fuzzy, but you're still awake.
I'm going to whisper, ether.
He points at the bottle, ether. And he's like, of course, you silly man. And he pulls out a needle and thread and starts to sew up your stomach. And about 5 minutes later, you are stitched up. And he looks down at you and looks at the job he did. And he says, you're lucky you're alive, you fool. And
I know.
he smiles at you. And he smiles at Emma and he says, he's a tough old bird, this one. But I'm sure he'll be back messing with the Tsar and the Tsarina soon enough. But rest up, my friend. The world is changing. You don't want to lose you before it all does.
You can say that twice.
I'm
going to reverse time and make him say it twice.
And he says it twice. And Emma watches this happen. You absolutely perceive this happen. Everybody else does rewind except for you and him.
I raise an eyebrow.
I'm just going to shake my head at her and say, I'm all up on ether. I don't know. And drunk.
He's hopped up on gooseberry. So he does that, and he lays back down. And the doctor says he was supposed to be heading to Moscow and then off to St. Petersburg after that. But you are you planning to stay with him?
Yes.
Or okay. I'm sure they can find you a place to stay at the house here, so you'll be okay.
Yes, I'm sure.
If you need anything, you can come find me. I will help you.
Thank you.
And he smiles, and then he goes off to talk to Rasputin's wife. And, Alex, you kind of doze for a little bit. In that moment, you kind of see you and a lady that you've met. She is an elegant woman, very tall, and she has a young boy with her, and she is pleading with you to help the boy.
So in my kind of drowsy, I'm going to whisper, Alexa.
Alexa? Oh, you're trying
Isn't that... No, isn't that...
I didn't get that.
Yeah. I knew that would happen. The minute you did that, I was like, uh-oh.
Isn't that her name, though?
Alexandra.
Okay,
So
so I
close.
say Alexandra, not Alexis.
Yeah. She smiles and says, help my son, Rasputin, dear father. Bless him so that he will be healed.
Okay. So I'm going to kind of walk over to the bed, if I can.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and this guy's on a very rich and probably like it would look like one of those fancy hotel beds kind of thing. And the room is incredibly opulent. Very, silk sheets and fancy. Like there's electric lights. It definitely feels very different than the little village you were in.
And I seem to actually be there. Like everything feels solid. Okay.
Yes, it feels solid. The weird part of it is your powers are not working the way they normally do. I mean, you can sense that there's power there, but it's different.
Okay.
And she looks at you and says, he has a blood clot. The doctors aren't sure he's going to live. I know you can do it.
So I'm going to look at her and I'll say, I will try.
She smiles and says, I will go tell everyone that our healer is here. And she walks out. And you're standing in front of this boy.
Okay.
I would like you to roll me a clever roll. Which so far has generally worked well for you, except for when you needed it to work. Then it almost didn't work. Okay, so you feel power flowing through your hands in a way that feels incredibly different from your normal method of dealing with your powers.
Okay.
Like it's almost like a warmth at the end of your fingertips.
Okay. So I'm gonna go over. I already went over to the bed, so I'm gonna kind of like pull back the covers so I can see more of the kid's body.
Okay, he is pale. He's almost ghostly white. He's lost so much blood, and he is having trouble breathing. He's becoming very shallow. You get the sense that he's going to die if something isn't done quickly.
Gotcha. So I'm gonna stretch out my hands and touch my fingers to like his forehead and his chest, and I'm going to kind of reach out the same way. Oh, sorry.
Roll me a flashy roll, please.
Okay. I'm going to kind of reach out the same way I do when I'm manipulating time, but instead in my mind, I'm going to focus on kind of like healing thoughts and see if that does anything. And at the same time, I'm going to glance around the room, and if there's no one else in there, I go, ouch.
Oh, nice. There is no one else in there. It is completely silent.
Yeah, so that's canon. I do the ET.
Yeah, I figured that's what that was from. And you feel essence go out from you, like power seeps out of you. And this child basically, his breathing straightens out. His color comes back to him. And you feel like as if you've removed the clot from where it was at.
Okay. So I'm going to kind of nod to myself, and I'm going to pull back my hands and kind of just look at them a bit, like, how?
And as you do that, you wake up.
Okay.
And you're sleeping on a couch in a house that is not lit. It is dark. And in one corner with a small candle sits your wife, or Rasputin's wife, I should say. Mm-hmm. And she looks down at you and just kind of gives you a sense of not disapproval, that's the wrong word, but sort of looking at you like, that was a bit of a near-run thing, don't you think?
I'm going to raise my eyebrow, and I'm going to kind of like turn my head to look around the room. And I'm going to like almost narrow, not narrow them like threateningly or anything, but like narrow my eyes like I'm thinking and say, Baba Yaga?
She smiles and says, no, I'm not that person. But my name is Praskova. And while you and I aren't acquainted, I was told that you were coming.
By someone in my family, no doubt.
By your ancestor, to be exact.
Oh.
And she smiles and says, he gave you a vision, didn't he?
He's going to nod of the Empress and her child.
She looks at you and nods and says, you saved your other self, saved him that day. You look so much like him, it's almost confusing.
He's gonna give a half smile. You don't know the half of it. From my side, anyway. It's really confusing.
She smiles. She says, I'm afraid what little he told me about what was happening. I guess I should fill you in. Your ancestor was an Anua.
So he's gonna really raise his eyebrows at that. I didn't know that.
And no, it's not common knowledge. He is one of those that has joined with humanity. And she smiles.
So he's gonna nod and say, so I'm part Anua then.
Indeed.
I'm not really sure how to feel about that, given my opinion of the Anua in the past.
She smiles and says, well,
my ancestor seems like a good person, so...
Considering all the fairy stories he's told me, she smiles and says, he was a very different individual. Some won't accept who he is. I know Markham never agreed with his decision. But...
Markham?
Thomas Markham, he's an American. Apparently he's one of them as well.
I do not know that, but someone does.
Someone does, yes, exactly. And she smiles and says, it's a very confusing situation. But he told me you were coming, and that you had to take his place.
Did he say for how long?
I don't know. But if it helps, it's 1914.
Well, I mean, that's closer to home.
He also said, look at the book.
Oh. So I'm going to kind of like pat myself, because I'm wearing his robes, but is the book where I had it in my coat pocket?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, everything's where it was. It's just you have these robes over top.
Gotcha.
So when you pull out the book, it is no longer in Klingon.
Oh.
It is in Russian. Which means you can read it.
Well, I will. Well, not to be rude, I'll be like, I'll look back at her. Do you mind if I look at this for a bit?
She smiles and says, of course. And when you need it, you can come rest. I will see you in the morning.
Thank you.
And she stands up, smiles, and says, it is incredibly strange to think that we are related. And she walks out.
Is Emma in here?
I don't know, is Emma in here?
Yeah, sure. You didn't tell me yet. I don't know.
You can, well, basically, you can be here. You were, were you sitting there waiting for him to wake up? That kind of thing. So you've overheard the discussion.
Well, see, that's the thing. I don't know. Like, if he didn't know I was there, would I have overheard that conversation?
Well, it was pretty dark, and there was like one or two candles up, so you could have been sitting behind him for all he knew. And he was pretty bleary coming out of ether sleep.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, yeah, I'm there.
Okay.
Well, now I notice you, and I kind of smile. I think that's like my great grandmother or something.
Oh, wow. That's crazy.
To be her husband.
Yeah.
This is a strange trip. Gonna look at you and did Lincoln and Leelui and CJ make it back? Did they send you to come get me?
No, I was sent by who was I sent by again, John?
By Zoe.
Was I? Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
you were sent by Zoe.
No, I was sent by Zoe.
Oh.
I don't think anyone's made it back yet.
That's a little disappointing. I don't understand what happened. Why we got separated when we were making the time jump. I hope they can find their way without me.
Where did you see them last?
We were in the UK during the War of the Roses. It was a ways back from here.
Yeah, I don't know. I was just sent here to get you to Russia, but you're here already, so I'm pretty confused.
So yeah. It is kind of confusing. I think what happened was I needed to be here to take my ancestor's place as Rasputin. Why? I'm not sure exactly. I'm assuming the answers are in the book, and he taps the book.
I feel like I recognize that book.
Yeah, I feel like you basically effectively gave him said book.
Well, that's what I was
Or
thinking,
at least you
but
gave
I
it
wasn't
to
100%
a chicken
sure.
murderer. Yeah.
The chicken!
No. Or was it a bunny? I can't remember what it was she killed. It was something.
Was it a bunny? It couldn't have been a bunny. I feel like
No,
I
it
would
wouldn't have been a bunny. You would have complained big time.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it wasn't a bunny.
You wouldn't have gotten out of that so easily. It's a bunny.
Yeah, no, I think it was a chicken, yeah.
Okay, can my character tell his character what Zoe told me? Like, catch him
Absolutely.
up? What's going on?
So, yeah, you can tell him. Okay, so I guess what you're trying to tell me then, Aruna, is you want me to tell him as if it was you telling him.
Yeah.
Yes, okay. Okay, so what she wants to do is info dump that to you.
Okay. So, yeah, I'll look at the book and I'll say, yeah. Oh, yeah, I got this way back in Pompeii. So you're the one that dropped it off there, huh?
Yes, I am.
And Leelui and Jacob have different bodies in the future? That's weird. It's really weird that they have one body, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, it's all pretty weird.
I'm just gonna look at her and say, "Aw, you're new, aren't you?"
Yep.
You also realize from looking at her that Emma's she looks like she's about 18. So she's super young.
Gotcha. So why did Zoe send you? I don't understand.
I'm the only one with the ability to get here.
Oh. But she's only known you a couple of months, right?
No, I've known her for a few years.
So he's gonna squint at you, say, a few years? You were in New Saint City just a little while ago? I didn't see you hanging out with the rest of the wardens when I was tailing them.
No, we weren't in the city. We were on an island.
The island of the Tomorrow People.
Yes.
Why? How long were you there for?
About 2 years.
Now he's really going to narrow his eyes at you and say, what year did you come from?
2021.
So he's going to look taken aback at that. When we left, it was only 2016. And it hasn't even yet been a year. It's been almost a year, but it should only be 2017.
I have no answers for you. But yeah, no, you've been gone a while. Time might be moving differently for you.
So we've basically missed 5 years.
Yes.
Ugh.
But it's okay. They're working on it, and that's why they sent me.
Yeah. I mean, it doesn't make too much of a difference to me. I mean, I'm sure my parents and my sister are worried that I've been gone so long, even though it didn't seem like that much to me. But, oh man, Lincoln and his kids. Oh, wow. Well, his kid, I mean. He's missed 5 years of his kid's life.
Yeah, Zoe actually sent a message for Lincoln.
Oh, I bet she did, but he's not here, though. I don't even know if I can get a message to him. I don't even know when or where they are. I just lost them in the last jump. Everything's so messed up.
So, do I know how long it's been that I've been here?
Well, it was 4:00 in the I'd say about 2:00 when you arrived. It is now pitch black.
So I'm already here forever now.
Possibly.
Okay, cool. Just making sure. Good thing that was my choice anyway.
Okay, good.
All right, so I have a device for him, right? Don't I? Like a button? What's the button do again? What do I have?
So you have a controller thing that's supposed to turn on the portal. So it was supposed to trigger it so that it would start up and you could get back.
Oh, okay, so that's useless now.
Yeah, it's pretty much useless.
Okay.
It's now a button. It's like the easy button.
So he's gonna look back up at you after saying everything was messed up. So why were you guys on the island with the Tomorrow people instead of in New Saint City?
We were there for safety.
Safety from what exactly?
The war.
What war?
I proceed to tell him about the war.
So she tells you that it's with Eris. And she tells you that the president rallied everyone in New Saint City along with the heroes in Matakiri, and they are basically mounting a defense of basically about half the Western Hemisphere and part of the Eastern Hemisphere to try and stop them, and basically from about Utah west in the United States. Is controlled by those from New Saint City, and everything east of that and into Europe is controlled by Eris and her minions.
I mean, I don't understand how this happened. Did something we do in the past mess stuff up, or did this just grow out of... I mean, Eris was a no-account thug. I don't understand.
Yeah, I'm sorry. It must be pretty confusing for you.
To say the least. So he's going to open the book and say, maybe there are some answers in here at least.
Large letters greet you. They say, "Don't panic."
Mm-hmm. I'm going to kind of turn the book towards her, because she obviously speaks Russian, and say, "Do you see this?"
It's in English to you, by the way, Emma.
Oh, okay.
So when you look at it, you see English. When he looks at it, he sees Russian.
Huh. All right.
I say, do you see the kind of things I do to myself? This is making me panic. And then I turn the page.
As you turn the page, the book is a journal of Grigory Rasputin. In it talks about his life. It gives you kind of the cliff notes of his past and kind of where he's been and what he's been up to. It tells you that he was an Anua who was born several hundred years ago. He met people while traveling in Wales and England with an army group who were fantastic people that he came to realize were obviously Anua in some form or fashion. And because he knew from his ancestors that they had to keep watch for the Nurgle, he prepared for the eventual needs of his descendants. At some point, he fell in love with the lady who you know now, and he decided at that point he would no longer continue the how should I put it? The pure Anua blood in the bloodline. Mm-hmm. So he decided for love it was worth it. And in process of doing that, he then realized that he needed to pass on to his descendants what he knew. So he gives you a message which you know already, basically, that the Nurgle are coming, who they are, what they're about, how they are sent to destroy the earth, that they will be the greatest threat humanity will have ever faced, and that it was a part of a war that went on over eons between the Nurgle and the Anua, which unfortunately hit this world. And as a descendant of the Anua, you may be asked to fight in this war. He then goes on to say, one of my descendants came to me a long time ago and met me in a forest south of here. And he said he was told to tell you that he knows what's coming and that you are to replace me. And he said to follow the instructions on the front of the book. And when the time's right, and when the portal opens, grab the other person. And I will face what is to come.
So when he finishes reading it, he looks up at Emma. I'm guessing you're the other person? I mean, unless you have a way to get us back home. You said you came to get me.
I came to get you to Russia. I had a way to get me back home, but unfortunately it's not going to work anymore.
He's gonna look at you. I mean, I met you here, so I was kind of already in Russia.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm pretty much a glorified messenger.
I mean, if I know the way this seems to work, there's probably something that you need to do here too. And it looks like we may be stuck here for a while, pretending to be Rasputin and
your sister, Ilanya. That comes from your grand ancestor who's standing back in the living room wearing a night dress. I'm sure she can pass as something like that. Nobody knows anybody from this little town.
What was that name again?
Ilanya.
Okay, thank you. I need to remember that if that's who I'm going as.
And she says, you're going to have to go back to St. Petersburg soon enough. The Tsar and his wife will call you back again, I'm sure, Rasputin. And she looks at you and says, regardless, be careful. It's a dangerous place. And the Tsars are not well loved.
I look at her and I say, I look at her and I say, well, I'm glad that you are going to be here because I have a feeling we're going to need your help. And I smile.
She says, yes, that's the impression I was left with. Your ancestor was, in all ways, fully planning. He also said that if your friend Lincoln, is it? Is that the name?
Yeah.
If he wants to help Gil, he should help you get home.
Okay.
And I'm sure you'll have your opportunity to discuss it with him again. His words, not mine.
So he's gonna chuckle at that and say, "Well, at least I know there's still hope that we'll see them again in our regular time." Or he kind of looks at Emma, or I guess in the future, what was my time?
And she looks at you and says, "You know, I don't know what's to come, but I know this much. If you get into trouble and you need help, there are people that you can go to." And she sits down at a little desk, and she pulls out a piece of paper and she writes down 3 names and hands them to you and says, "You contact either any of these people and they will make sure you are assisted. They are friends of Gregory."
So I'll nod to her. Do you mean here in this time?
Yes.
Okay.
In
So I'm gonna
St. Petersburg. Or Petrograd, as they call it these days.
So I'm going to look at the names and kind of commit them to memory, but then I'm also going to stick the piece of paper in the journal.
Okay. Okay. So with that, she says goodnight to you both and says, "You have a room, Emma, if you need it." And she offers to take you to it.
Yes, please. Thank you.
And then she comes back and says, "Come with me, Rasputin. We can't do everything we need to do now. We need to rest. You'll have to catch the train in the morning."
So I'll stand up and be like, ugh, feeling the pain where the stab was. And he's like, he points at it and says, "But I didn't actually get stabbed. Why do I have to live with this pain?"
She says, "It's an affectation. I don't know everything about it, but it's a necessity. I was told to tell you to take it easy. It hurts."
Yeah, it does. But if it's necessary, it's necessary.
She smiles and says, "Come to bed. It is time to sleep."
So I'll take her hand.
She takes you into her room and says, "Here, you sleep on the bed. I will curl up over here." And she sets a pad out for herself and she says, "We can fake husband and wife, but we ain't. I don't think I should be anywhere near my descendant."
Yeah, and that would be a little weird.
She smiles and laughs and says, "And anyway, Baba Yaga would punch me in the face anyway." And,
so he's gonna like slightly perk up at that. So you've met Baba Yaga?
Ah, yes, many years ago. She's a rascal. Her daughter gets it honestly, and her granddaughter's even worse.
I can attest to the granddaughter part.
She smiles at that and says, "I'm sure you'll have plenty of time to get to know her. Her chicken-legged house is famous, of course."
He's going to snort at that and say, "Yeah, I've already heard about it."
And she smiles again and says, "Good night, Alex."
Good night.
And she lays down and goes to sleep. Right. Is there anything you both want to do before we move on?
No, I'm good.
Okay, cool. All right. So, next morning, you are escorted to a carriage, which will carry you off out of the village. You will be in pain pretty much for the entire trip, I'm afraid, Rasputin. Yeah. And you have been told by your doctor to take it easy and not to do anything until after that is healed, and it'll take a little while. So
I'm taking full advantage of this. I'm like, Emma, can you give me some water? Emma, can you give me a pillow?
And being Emma, I do it all.
And yeah, so you eventually get to the train, and you ride the train back towards Petrograd. It will take you the better part of I'd say about 4 or 5 days to get back there from where you're at. To kind of give you an idea, you guys are somewhere above Kazakhstan. So if you know your Russian geography, it's a fair ways past into sort of Siberia area. So you have to travel quite a ways to get back to where you need to be. So basically, because of the wagon ride and the train and all that, it takes you, I'd say, about 2 weeks to get back there. When you get to Petrograd, there is a large military presence in the town, in the city, and there is guards everywhere, and the newspapers are blaring about how the war has started and how the Russians will make the Germans pay for attacking Serbia, and specifically the Austrians pay for attacking Serbia. And you eventually get to sort of your home away from home, and it's an opulent mansion-like building on kind of near where the Tsar and the Tsarina live in their palace. And after you've been sort of settled in for a bit, the Tsar comes and knocks on your door.
Come and knock on our door. I'm going to say, Emma, could you get the door?
Emma's getting really, really used to this now, basically being your handmaid, in effect.
Yeah, I go get the door.
The gentleman who's standing there is dressed in a very fine suit. It has got military aspects to it. He looks at you, Emma, and says, hello? I am looking for Father Rasputin.
Yes, he's right in here.
And he nods and says, and who may you be, miss? Are you his new maid?
No, I'm,
Your new love interest?
No.
No. I love it. I love that response. Like, And he smiles.
I'm going to speak up and say, no, this is my sister.
And he looks and says, oh, I did not know you had a sister, Gregory, who lived with you. And he smiles at you and says, we have serious problems, Gregory. We could use your blessing.
Of course, Your Majesty.
And he looks at you and says, always with the jokes. Yes. Come to the center of the palace. I am sure the Empress will be happy to see you, but more to the point, we need to ensure that we have God's blessing as we deal with these foreign interlopers.
So I'm going to stand up and kind of like touch my side and say, I do not know if you have heard, but I was stabbed. I may need, what are we calling you, Emma? What's your new name?
Elania?
I may need Elania's help to support me.
Whatever you need, Father. Be sure to let us know. We will do it. We will prepare for your arrival, shall we?
I thank you.
He nods at you and walks out.
I close the door.
There are 2 guards standing at your door now. And as the Tsar leaves and his vehicle takes him away, they still stand in front of the door.
Okay.
Oh, is there something else you need?
Did you open the door? I thought you closed it.
Well, I don't know. How would I know that they were standing there then?
Well, you'd see them as the door was closing. They're
Okay.
still there as he gets in his car and drives away.
Okay, well, I hesitate. Like, wait a minute. And then I open the door again. And I ask them if there's anything else they need.
No, miss. We have been tasked with protecting the father.
All right,
Since
have a
he-
good night.
He smiles and says, "Aye, ma'am."
All right, now I close the door. For realsies.
Okay. As you do, you hear one of them mutter, "She's pretty cute. Maybe you should ask her if she wants to go out with you, Alexei." And he says, "Shush, you fool. She can hear you."
I crinkle my nose like, eh.
Fair enough. And the door closes. So how, I guess basically like the next day, I guess, you guys make your way to the palace.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but before we went to sleep that night, I was kind of, I just look at Emma and say, I don't know why I took on the Russian accent. The babblefish makes me speak perfect Russian, so I don't know.
Just in case.
And so in the next morning, you arrive at the palace. The building has a lot of military around it, but otherwise it is incredibly opulent. It looks like what you remember from your dream state, Alex.
Mm-hmm.
And when you arrive, the Empress looks up at you and sees you and smiles with delight, and you obviously recognize who she is.
Okay. So I'll smile back, and I'll kind of almost hold out my arms for a hug.
Mm-hmm.
Alexandra, so good to see you.
She says, "Oh, you wicked man, they almost killed you. You need to be more careful."
I'm harder to kill than that.
And she smiles and says, "I hope so. I wouldn't want you going missing anytime soon. We will need your help all through the next few months as we take on these Austrians."
Little nod. As long as I am here, I shall help you.
And she smiles and says, "I am glad." And the Tsar walks up and he also has a smile. But you can see around him there are people who definitely are not happy to see you.
Mm-hmm.
And,
I know. He read up a lot on Rasputin. He knows very well which ones like him and which ones don't.
Yeah, fair enough. And probably the biggest culprit is one of the Grand Dukes, who's been basically put in charge of the military. You know he hates your guts. He thinks you're an adulterer who has basically slept your way to the top, and that you bedded the queen, the empress, and are basically a slime ball. And so he has no patience for you at all.
Because he don't believe in magic.
Yeah, the Grand Duke Nicholas is his name. And he gives you a very kind of hostile look.
I totally play up the opposite. I'm like, "Nicholas, so good to see you again, too."
He nods like as if he almost smiled at that. So yeah, he gives you quite the look, but then kind of puts on a forced smile. And you can see he looks at another priest kind of side-eyed, and the other priest kind of shrugs. And the other priest also looks at you and is not very happy to see you. And generally, they just kind of ignore you effectively. But a general comes up to you and he nods and says, "Father, I have been asked by His Highness to ask for your blessing before we carry out the war. Will you give it to me?"
But of course.
And he nods and he puts a knee down, and the priests raise their crosses that they have with them. Mm-hmm. And one of the younger priests walks up to you and hands you a kind of looks like a golden goblet with it's hanging off of another thing, and it's spewing incense. Mm-hmm. And you, from your reading, know you kind of have to wave it around and kind of say blessings upon them, which you more or less do as to the best of your ability. And they all shout amen at the end of it. And everybody else around Emma give off the like, sure, kind of sarcasm. But you can see that the Tsarina is absolutely enthralled with whatever Alex does, and is a total believer. And she smiles broadly and says, "With this, I know we can now win the war. Anyone who can heal my son can help us win this war." And she nods, and now God is on our side. And she smiles at you.
So I'll smile back, but it's also kind of like a slightly tinged with sadness smile, since I know what eventually happens to them. Mm-hmm. So, mm-hmm. But yeah, I try to fake it.
No problem. Okay. So, with that, and with that accomplished, I assume you guys will make your leave or have dinner or whatever it is you'll do at this point with them. Mm-hmm. Is there anything else you guys will want to do before we move on?
I would just ask to look at Alexei, and see how he's doing.
He's never really been a fully healthy child. He's always kind of sickly. Mm-hmm. But he has done better since your intervention.
Okay.
Or at least your perception of somebody's intervention.
Yeah.
And they have always been that's been the big thing that has them enthralled to you, in effect, for lack of a better word.
Gotcha.
But like I said, nobody else is enthralled with you. Everybody else is very suspicious and very much dislikes you. And there is a general feeling amongst the nobility that you are the problem. Mm-hmm. Because you're a made man, and they don't like that.
It's sad because as Alex, I could easily prove that he had magic, but Alex knows that never happened in the timeline, and he won't risk messing it up.
Fair enough. Probably a wise idea at this point. Mm-hmm. You guys are messing it up enough.
Yep.
And so with that, unless there's anything else, we'll basically end this scene, for lack of a better word.
Okay.
Okay, so you guys will head back home. The war will begin. It will pretty much go badly for the Russian military right from the off. And shortly after the beginning of it, the general in charge gets sacked, Vladimir Sukhomalinov, and he is replaced by the Grand Duke that you saw, and the Tsarina at one point actually asks you to go to the front, and basically he says if he comes to the front, I will kill him. And so effectively you are left sidelined as the war moves along. The Russian war is not a good one, needless to say, mostly because they're very backward and they're dealing with the German and Austrians who have much better military and much better ability to wage war. And if it wasn't for the fact that they were also fighting on the Western Front, probably would have destroyed the Russians quite easily. And we will zoom ahead 2 years, but we'll have to find out what happens in 1916 soon. But not next time. So until then, dun, dun, dun. Runa, where can we find you online?
Good question. I always get my handles mixed up. Sorry. You can find me on Twitter at GemRuna or on Twitch at RunaGem and YouTube, which is also RunaGem.
Funny enough. And Rob.
You can find me on Twitter at Confessor_X and on Twitch at twitch.tv/ConfessorX.
Awesome.
You can't find me on YouTube.
No, you can't find him on YouTube. And you can find me at LinsteadDM on Twitter and on Twitch, for that matter. And you can find everything we do at distractionsmedia.com. And you can find Fate of Heroes on Facebook at facebook.com/Fate of Heroes. Until next time, everyone, have a great day. We'll talk to you later. And we're moving ever closer to the end of this season. So take care, everyone. Bye.
Bye.
This has been a Distractions Media production. For more information, you can check out everything we do at distractionsmedia.com.